Hey guys, welcome to Ross Reviews. This is Charlie bringing you the review for Mission Impossible Fallout, which came out very recently. I intended to watch this at the weekend, but on Sunday when I went, the cinema was shut because of a fire alarm problem. Such is my life. Um, I did get around to seeing it yesterday, in fact, so I am... just for once, it would be nice if everything went right. But it has been a while since I've done a review on this channel. In fact, it's the first since the revival, so I'll just give you a quick refresher on how this works before I get into the review itself. I do non-spoiler reviews and spoiler reviews in the same video. They are combined. I'll talk about it in a non-spoiler way first. I will announce the spoilers are coming, pause, and then talk about it in a spoiler way. That way, it just gives people both the people who haven't seen it yet, who just want to get a feel for the film, and the people who have seen it and wanted to, maybe see if other people feel the same way about the film, or talk about certain plot points, see if they pick up on the same things and that kind of stuff. And just allows both kind of people to watch the same video and don't not have to sort of hunt around for the correct version. I realise hunt is technically a pun here, but just allows those people. It just means we don't need to faff around searching between videos, and means I don't need to faff around either. So, frankly, it's easy for me, it's easy for you, it's easy for everyone. There we go. So, Mission Impossible Fallout review begins. By God, what a film! Yes. Basically, as soon as I watched this film, I had to go back and check things because I really loved Ghost Protocol and I really love Rogue Nation. I know personally I loved all three of them. The first three I'm a little bit spotty on, a little bit. It has been a while since I have seen them. I didn't actually rewatch them before I didn't rewatch any of them before this, I should just mention. So actually this comes from a point of view of someone who has seen them all but hasn't seen them all recently. So anything plot-wise that gets picked up, I'll talk about that later. But I went and checked on Rotten Tomatoes. Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation both have 93%. This film right here has 97% currently. I think pretty much everyone's reviewed it at this point as well, so I don't think that's going to change too much. I'm not sure if there's... I mean, obviously there's the great trilogies like the Lord of the Rings trilogy and Toy Story, frankly. But I know there's obviously great trilogies out there. Dark Knight trilogy, I believe. Even though, personally, I know this is a bad thing to say, personally, I'm not a huge fan, but I know the Godfather trilogy is usually well regarded. I think was it just the first two? I can always forget that one. I think that might be the one where it's just the first two and the third one isn't regarded very well. But I can't remember if it is or not. But I'm just trying to think, is there a string? Because obviously these are films 4, 5, and 6, so strictly speaking, they're not a trilogy as such, but taking them as a string of 3 consecutive films, I'm not sure if a franchise has produced 3 consecutive films that have been received as well as these. At the very least, this has got to be up there. Mission Impossible has sort of ironically stealthed its way through 3 really good films, because people don't talk about Mission Impossible the same way they talk about, like, Dark Knight, for instance, because Dark Knight is lauded by everyone. You go, oh, fantastic films, Dark Knight comes into your mind. Ghost Protocol, Road Nation, and this. Mission Impossible films, they're kind of stealthed out. Even things like Fast and Furious, which was sort of revived by an insanely brilliant Fast 5, kind of dipped a little bit since, but they were sort of pretty steady between 5, 6, and 7. The quality was pretty good for all 3 of those, and then 8 wasn't as great. But people were talking about them. When Fast and Furious got good after Fast 5, people were talking about them. I don't see the same kind of chatter for Mission Impossible films. Like, they've come out to great reviews. The reviewers are talking about them in a positive way, but in public, general society, people-wise, word of mouth, you don't really hear it as much, which is surprising considering what a big franchise. And this is actually apparently the biggest opening for any Mission Impossible yet. So I think the original trilogy did dent the reputation a little bit. I forget whereabouts it dented. According to the reviews, I suspect it was number 2 is one that really dented it. But in general, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, Mission Impossible on that front. But the film itself, it deserves the 97%. I'll say that's for certain. In an age, and I will. Obviously, I'll freely admit, because every reaction so far I've done is to be into... Oh no, except for Godzilla wasn't. But I'm a nerd. I watch all this comic book stuff. I relish in these comic book films. Of course, they're huge CGI fest by nature, just because of the way that it works. A bunch of them have alien planets or villains that require some form of CGI. Maybe, of course, this is an Mission Impossible, an action blockbuster where everything is normal, everything is done practical, everything is done practical. It's all real. All the stunts are real. I mean, there might be I say it's all real. There might be obviously a little bit of CGI retouching, but all the stunts and actions and stuff, that's all real. So it is refreshing in its own way, and I think there's a certain element of I saw an interview with Simon Pegg who says something similar, and it's like, yes, that's what I've been trying to think of. Because it's all real, there's a certain level of attachment to the film, engagement to the film, as it were. Because if it goes wrong, you know it's going wrong for the real actor. There's no safety net or such, or it doesn't feel like there's a safety. I mean, obviously, the stuff that Tom Cruise does, there is no safety net. He does it all for real. But because it feels so real for everyone else as well. I mean, I don't know how much the rest of them did their own, either did their own stunts, or if they're all practical stunts at the very least. I mean, they might have safety precautions in place, but they all feel like real action stuff. Because you've got that engagement, there's a certain bigger element for when it goes wrong. It's like, oh, you feel it more in a way. But when it's all CGI, you can sort of detach from it, and I think that's been one of the better things for the new the Disney Star Wars, is they've returned a little bit more to practical effects than the original when the prequel trilogy did. They returned a little bit more to the practical effects, and you feel a little bit more engaged in the world itself as a result. Apologies if you can hear any background noise, by the way. Of course, someone decides to cut a hedge or lawn or something at this point. Such is my luck. But not stopping now. So yes, it's the action is phenomenal. The set, and that same interview, Simon Pegg says any one of those set pieces could have been a conclusion to any other film, and it would have been perfectly acceptable. All through, but as it is, they're all in the same film, and they're all fantastic. They're all brilliant. In terms of, I did have to check a few things because I was slightly confused about where certain people went or came from. But yeah, Jeremy Renner isn't in this one. I couldn't remember where he went. That's not really a spoiler, but he is alive apparently. I couldn't remember how his character ended up in the last film, but he's not in this one. But we do have a whole bunch of new people in this film. Actors-wise, it's not really spoilers to say the actors, I don't think, but I won't mention them all. Obviously, trailer-wise, I'll mention anyone who's been in the trailer. Obviously, in the trailer, Angela Bassett is an interesting new character. Does tread a kind of annoying. Essentially, it's his own Mission Impossible trope in its own way now. Does tread the trope very character-wise, treads the trope really nicely. But Angela Bassett is Angela Bassett, and you kind of forgive her anyway, just because it's Angela Bassett. Henry Cavill is fantastic, and yeah, but can't really go talking too much about their characters and their sort of their progression throughout the film without going into spoilers, sadly. Yeah, I mean, it's all gorgeous as well. It's all very well shot. We go from Paris, London. They're all in the trailer, so that's fine. But it goes, all the Paris stuff is wonderfully shot. I mean, particularly obviously all those action sequences have been shot so intensely and so realistically that it just really sets in the fact that this is real as well. Just the way it's been shot as well really helps that engagement with the real stunts that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, the cast is great, the set piece is great, and the reception has been phenomenal. I'm not really sure how much more I can talk about this film without going into spoilers as such. I'll just say, yeah, everyone's great. I mean, Simon Pegg I love in everything. Ving Rhames, is brilliant in this as he has been in the previous ones. I haven't really seen much of him outside of these films, if I'm honest. But yeah, his character's been a great addition throughout the entire series of films. I think he's been in all of them. Is it? Maybe I think he's one of the ones that's been in all of them. But yeah, and I do love Simon Pegg, and it is obviously a slightly different world for Simon Pegg because he's usually in a sort of the lighter comedy fare, maybe sci-fi fare to a degree. He does get a bit of action maybe in sci-fi films. This is, I'm not really sure how much. I don't think he's actually in any sort of just straight action stuff other than this. Gets to do a little bit of, gets to do a little bit more. And this isn't too much of a spoiler, I guess, but gets to do a little bit more fisticuffs, as it were, than he's used to. I mean, his character's origin was very much the tech guy, still very much the tech guy, but does get to be part of the action a little bit more than the previous films. Again, I think he's just gradually getting a little bit more and more, and it seems like Simon Pegg himself has become a good friend of Tom Cruise's in his own way, so that's probably reflected in the way he's getting more and more involved in character as well, which is pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, it's not really much more to say than to say you need to watch this film, even if you haven't seen the previous ones. I mean, I would recommend at the very least watching Rogue Nation. I don't think Rogue Nation requires too much backstory to know. I would suggest maybe watching Rogue Nation. It's one of those films that doesn't really need to. You don't really need to have seen the previous ones to truly enjoy it. But I think there was a film recently that I felt the same way about, and I can't remember what it is anymore. But yeah, you don't really need to have seen. Oh, yeah, it was actually Fast and Furious. It was Fast 8. Fast 8 itself wasn't the best of films. It was pretty enjoyable, and you know, it was an enjoyable film. It was an entertaining film. It wasn't necessarily a great film, but there was one particular plot thread. And I know the film's come out. Fast and Furious has been out for like a year now, so it's not really a big deal if I spoil it. But I'm still not gonna. There's one plot thread in that involving Vin Diesel's character when he gets taken by Charlize Theron's character, and taken to her plane. There's a plot thread that unravels from there upon that plane, which kind of really needs you to have seen 5, 6, and 7, or 5. I can't remember which ones are relevant, but yeah, at least 5, 6, and 7. You need to have seen like that, those three, to really appreciate that thread at its most. But the film as a whole doesn't suffer if you haven't seen, and it's kind of similar here. You can enjoy this film without having seen the previous ones. Absolutely, you can absolutely. But there's certain moments that you'll get a greater attachment to or a greater appreciation of if you've seen the previous ones. So especially obviously Rogue One. This is pretty much the only time. This is the only time they've ever done a direct sequel. As well, this very much follows on from Rogue Nation. So I would probably suggest watching Rogue Nation at the very least. It's an excellent film as well. So, but you don't need to have seen it to enjoy this film, because you can enjoy this film and its set pieces and its action and its everything without needing to see that. So yeah, and this is where the spoilers come in, because I can't talk anymore without spoiling something. So spoilers are coming in 3, 2, 1. There's your warning. Spoilers! Now, okay. I'm going to start with some negative stuff, just because I couldn't really spoil the negative stuff in the first half. I mean, like I say, just mind negative. Actually, the first thing I'm going to spend on is that trope. Angela Bassett's character does that Mission Impossible trope of government official does not understand IMF, government official sees what IMF does, government official is now on IMF's side. It literally happened in the previous film with Alec Baldwin. It happens in this film with Angela Bassett's character. It's the same. It happens in other films as well. It's sort of, government official doesn't understand rogue group's operation, gets to witness it firsthand. Now appreciates them, even though they were initially against him in the first place. It's that trope. But like I said, it's Angela Bassett, and you can't hate her. So, yeah. But yeah, the other main thing involves Henry Cavill's character, and it's the fact that it's a painfully obvious twist. If I'm honest, if you've seen the trailers, if anything, the trailers give. I loved the Super Bowl. The trailer came out for the Super Bowl. I thought that was the best trailer of all the Super Bowl stuff. Incidentally, I think it's one of the best trailers in recent memory as well. Just the way that trailer was cut as well, especially to that Imagine Dragons song. and the way that Imagine Dragons song blended in, the way they blended in that Mission Impossible theme into the end of that song on that trailer was fantastic, and the way that it obviously was all set up scene wise as well. I thought that was brilliant. I watched so many reactions to that trailer because I couldn't get enough of it. However, Henry Cavill in that trailer, his character is seen shooting at Tom Cruise, at Ethan. I might start referring to them by character names eventually, but August Walker, Henry Cavill's character, was in one helicopter shooting at Tom Cruise in the other helicopter. Now the trailer kind of sets it up a little bit as ambiguous as to why that's happening. Like maybe it's a misunderstanding. It kind of sets it up that the CIA or government think that Ethan Hunt has actually gone rogue or something, and they're hunting him down, and they think they think Ethan is the bad guy. So I went in assuming that was the case. Well, I went in with that in my mindset. That okay, maybe Henry Cavill is a good guy, but he's just got the wrong idea about Tom Cruise in this scene, and he's shooting at him because he thinks he's the bad guy. And then, ta-da! All friends and stuff. But when you watch the film, it becomes painfully obvious that Henry Cavill is the bad guy. I told you this is a spoiler bar, so if you're still watching, you should not be. But it's painfully obvious that Henry Cavill is going to be the bad guy because they introduce literally no one else that survives more than 2 minutes who could possibly be the character. So the character with the secret. Well, John Lark, obviously. If you've seen the film, I don't know why I'm bashing around the point. If you're watching this, if you're in the spoiler part of this, you've seen it. So there's no one else John Lark could be, because if it's not Ethan, then it has to be Henry. It has to be Henry Cavill's character because he's the only new character that fits the bill. Because there was the proxy guy who they killed in the bathroom, and then that's it. It could either be that guy, which is unlikely, because otherwise the film just basically ends. So it has to be Henry Cavill. So yeah, that reveal wasn't really obvious. That reveal wasn't, surprise. He's the bad guy. Neither was the scene in which he reveals himself to be the bad guy. I was absolutely not surprised by the fact that was Benji as Solomon Lane. The way they set that up was just painfully obvious a little bit. Doesn't track from the film, but it's my only minor criticism is that the twist was kind of given. I feel like the twist was given more weight than it was needed, because either they needed to add at least one more red herring into the mix to make that a surprise. Otherwise, I didn't actually. One thing I will give credit to, I did not realize that Alec Baldwin's character was in on it. I didn't realize that was the main thing. I knew they'd left Benji behind. I generally thought they'd left to do the thing, generally left with Solomon Lane to do the trade or whatever, and they left Benji behind to get Henry Cavill's confession, August Walker's confession, and then surprise is Simon Pegg, it's Benji. But yeah, it just wasn't. It was just obvious. Didn't really give him a lot of motive either, if I'm honest. When you sort of think about it, he's not really given a history as such. He talks about, obviously he's the one who wrote the manifest and all that stuff, and he was essentially one of Lane's followers. But he's not really given a history as to why he turned. But there's sort of like a general. These are kind of people who got a little bit disgruntled with the MI6 or whatever organization they work for and turned against them. He's not really given anything. He's not really given a history, but his presence is very much known throughout the film. Henry Cavill is an imposing dude, especially next to Tom Cruise, who is about a foot taller than. Probably. Whew. The fight scenes it's kind of impressive because obviously Ethan Hunt is. I think it's mainly obviously down to Tom Cruise's stature, but he's a sort of scrappy fighter. He sort of just goes for what he can. Henry Cavill was just brute force. August Walker would just use brute force for everything. Just bam, just all strength, all just least path of least resistance, essentially. Just bam, 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 he's down, kind of deal. Even his walk is just sort of imposing. There's when he's when he's being followed by Ethan, that walk is just like that is an imposing dude. Just to say that. However, I will say the film doesn't really suffer as a result because it in a way because it was that unsurprising. It's kind of and the fact that it was revealed in a relatively short scene. There wasn't any ambiguity about it. It wasn't sort of is he or isn't he? Is this a red herring? It's very much sort of is he bad guy? Yes, he's bad guy. Okay, and then moves on. It kind of just sort of just deals with its own lackluster twist, as if they know it's a lackluster twist and just get on with the film. Like, is he a bad guy? Oh, he's the bad guy. Now we will treat him as the bad guy for the rest of this film. There's no sort of scenes where he's sort of there's no scenes where he's still part of the group, but potentially a bad guy. Sort of a mole kind of thing. It's like, isn't bad guy, seems to be on the good guy side. Okay, he's bad guy. Now he's bad guy side, fully. There's no scenes where he sort of infiltrated the group, unknown to the group. So it's kind of just dealt with, and it's dealt with as if they know that it's a rubbish twist. But anyway, the film doesn't, like I say, the film doesn't suffer anyway in any way, shape, or form. However, in terms of the recurring stuff, like I mentioned earlier, Julia, Michelle Monaghan's character, finally returns, and they get to tie that thread off. Basically, she was only seen in number 3. I actually forgot she wasn't in the first two, or at least wasn't seen in the first two, or isn't credited in the first two. She's only credited in the third one in Wikipedia anyway. So but they managed to tie off that romantic thread because naturally the introduction of Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa in Rogue Nation and how close she got to Ethan in that film kind of means they had to resolve the issue of the wife, the original wife, in this one, and they did it really nicely. Actually, they did it really neat. It wasn't. They did not fall. I love the fact they did not fall for classic sort of new interest, old interest stereotypes. Julie has very much moved on with her life. She's happy. She's fine. She's fine. She's fine with everything in her own respect. And obviously, the new person isn't jealous of the old. Ilsa isn't jealous of her either. It's like, oh, I like her kind of stuff, back and forth. So they actually end up in a place where, they actually end up in a place almost as friends, despite the fact they've only known each other for like 2 hours at that point, or however long Tom Cruise is out for. I guess at the end of that film, it's not. I'm not sure how. Come over they actually say how long he's been out for at that point, but clearly Ilsa and Julia have got to talking in between those 2 points. But yeah, Ilsa's great. I think, to be honest, Ilsa was great. Just her allegiance. I really like the fact that it was sort of very much a third party with her own agenda kind of deal, because you've got IMF guys, good guys. You've got the apostles in this case, the ex-syndicate, the now reduced syndicate, as it were, as the bad guys, and then you've got sort of Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa operating on her own with her own agenda within this plot thread. She sort of just weaves her way in and out and ends up obviously with the good guys towards the end. I really like that. My only worry, of course, with seemingly turning Ilsa into Ethan's romantic interest at the end of the film, it's not really fully done in any way, shape, or form. But it's very that scene at the end very much was the baton passing from Julia to Ilsa in that regard. My only worry, of course, is when inevitably Mission Impossible 7 rolls around. My only worry is I really hope that doesn't hold her back as a character. I really hope they don't fall into some classic stereotypes or classic cliches in that position. So yeah, I also like the fact you didn't really get jealous of Vanessa Kirby's character, White Widow. I forgot what her real name was now in that, but White Widow. I really like the fact that she didn't actually get jealous of the White Widow kissing Ethan either, even though she clearly had feelings for him as well. Side note, I adore Vanessa Kirby now. I haven't seen her in The Crown or anything else she's been in. I know she was in The Crown. But I haven't seen anything else she's been in. I adore Vanessa Kirby now. I will follow her career with interest. I would say that for now. I love her character as well. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting character. Sort of just seemingly, what's the word? Impetuous, I guess the word is. Just sort of carefree and footloose and fanciful, he said. But just sort of acts on a whim almost a little bit. She's just a little bit wild card. That's the word. A little bit of a wild card in a way. I love her character. Just her character instincts and the annoying brother, as it were. So I'm glad she turned out not to be a fully bad guy. I'm glad she turned out to be sort of enveloped as part of the CIA as a sort of an asset. I'm glad that turned out to be the case, but I'm glad she gets to hopefully return in a future film, because I adored her and I adored her character very, very much. And I was a little bit annoyed that she seemed to be okay. It was a little bit. It's like I felt really bad. Well, I felt bad that I still enjoyed her character after she seemed to be okay with outright murdering a bunch of French policemen in the original plan. So when it's kind of revealed that she isn't fully bad, that's still ambiguous. It's still ambiguous as to if they'd gone. I don't understand how they would. If she was actually an asset, then why on earth would they sanction a plan which would involve the murder of many, many policemen? Unless they expected Ethan to change it, but that's a hell of a risk to take. If in that case, but oh well. That's probably one of the only ambiguous plot points I have. It's the only thing that wasn't really fully explained as to what their involvement precisely was in that. Because presumably they'd expect Ethan to go off plan. I guess that's what they were expecting. But the original plan involved a lot of murder of innocent policemen, unless the policemen were a part of it as well. Then in which case they already had Solomon Lane, so that can't be true. So never mind. Sean Harris is a returning villain. He's fine. He does the same job he did the last time around. But yay. I can't really say much about that, to be honest. It didn't really leave too much of an impact on me this time around. At least he's still not dead either, which is annoying. But hopefully he has gone away properly this time. Henry Cavill's death, by the way. Whew. That was nasty. But again, telegraphed as hell. I'm not sure what it is about August Walker, but I don't know why they felt they need to telegraph everything that was going to happen to him really so obviously. Like, they genuinely put so much focus on that hook when it first sort of dangled down from the helicopter. I don't think they needed to make that so obvious at that point. Obviously, the second when the helicopter came down and slipped off the rock, and the hook was the thing keeping the helicopter on. That was the point when they should have obviously started keeping the focus on that hook. When the hook was by itself, I was actually fully expecting the fight to happen in the vertical and completely forgetting about the trailer happening on top of the cliff. I was fully expecting a vertical fight to happen and Henry Cavill's August Walker to fall through it onto the hook that way. I was fully expecting him to go through the hook vertically onto it. And then obviously the helicopter came down and they had to fight on the cliff from the trailer, which I'd forgotten about. Incidentally, from the trailer, that scene that ended that first trailer with Tom Cruise and the helicopter's going down the forest road, about to hit the lorry, not in the film. I was sort of watching that helicopter sequence with very much interest, trying to work out where that scene was going to appear, because they never really went. I suspect it was in that part where he was trying to wrestle control of the helicopter after it got hit. I suspect, and it started to get a bit low to the ground and near a wooded area. I suspect that's where that scene was, but it never materialized in the actual film. So, oh well. I can't remember if there was anything else missing from the trailers, but that one sticks in my mind because it was sort of the sting of the trailer. It was the very end of the first trailer, which I watched so many times. But yeah, everything. Honestly, it's really, really good film. And if you're in this part, then you've seen the spoilers. I don't need to tell you how good it is because you already know. But yeah, hopefully those few things. Like I say, I don't really have a lot to mention. Those are the main things. I mean, if you felt that twist was obvious, if that twist surprised you, let me know. But yeah, if you feel like that twist was, if you agree with me on that twist, or if you agree with me with, one thing I forgot to mention, the that sequence with the scientist guy in the fake hospital. I was buying it. I bought that very initially, and there was an interesting moment where I found myself agreeing with that initial plot, with the what was presumably the original plot, which I guess they had to change when they lost one of the cores, which kind of confuses me because they gave deliberately if August Walker was part of Solomon Lane's organization, then he gave one of the cores indirectly to the IMF, which means they never planned to use three in the first place. Which means the holy site plan, which they trick the scientist guy at the beginning, was never the plan to begin with. Which means he shouldn't have fallen for that, unless that was the plan he was led to have believed. Then how would the IMF know, because they hadn't met August Walker at that point, who could have fed them that information? So I'm a little bit confused how that one falls out, because if they had all three, would they targeted holy sites? But because they gave one away, but they gave one away in such a way that Henry Cavill could have easily just taken it back again. I'm confused as to how they actually. I'm confused as to how the IMF and the CIA actually kept that first one, considering that it was part of one of the two people involved in that transaction was one of the bad guys. So, oh well. I'm not entirely certain why that plan changed, but oh well. But I found myself agreeing with the Holy Plan side, or at the very least, in the wake of seeing the destruction of the Vatican, the Jerusalem, and Mecca, I understood why that could work. I very least found myself agreeing with the notion. Actually, that makes a lot of sense as a bad guy plan, because if you unite the religions of the world, give them a common enemy, then that could actually really work. I felt bad for agreeing with the bad. Well, I felt agreeing with the bad guy plan. Obviously, the death is not worth it, but the wait, like, if that situation happened in the real world, it'd be a case of actually that would logically what would follow would be the religions having a common enemy now, and it made a lot of sense. And if I'm honest, I'm a little bit worried about someone seeing this, and thinking that's a good, genuinely thinking that's a good idea, and it should be done. I am slightly worried by that fact, if I'm honest. And in terms of actual bad guy plans, the one they had in the end made a lot of sense as well. I mean, not. It didn't make a lot of sense in the sense that it. Whilst the Holy One had a logical sense, if that happened, then that would be the logical outcome. As a bad guy plan, it was a thought out bad guy plan. It wasn't an insane plan which makes no logical sense whatsoever. Like setting that off there would irradiate the water for a third of the world's farming, essentially, and that was incredibly thought out in that sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's a very irrational thing to do. That was, in fact, if anything really does detract from the film, is the fact that plan that they went for at the end of the film made way less sense than the plan they had at the beginning of the film with the holy sites. So I guess they needed to be in one location for the film to work at the end. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked. And they needed to tie Julia in somehow. And that worked out, I guess. It was very, in the end, I suppose, in terms of tying the characters together and where everyone is a very well worked out plot, even if Solomon's plan at the end was worse than the Holy Side plan at the beginning, really. Irradiating a third of the world, farming, doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not sure what the outcome they were hoping for there. They never really explained what the outcome of that, what they're hoping the outcome of that is. It's just obviously the greater the suffering, the greater the peace. But I'm not sure how there's going to be peace if you've killed a third of the world, and a third of the world that really isn't at war with anyone else, particularly. because I'm sure they also, I think there's infighting within that region, but there's no, like, it's not like America's not attacking that for, there's no wars between the first world and, the sort of Europe and America and that area, the area that they infected. So slightly confused as to what they were hoping for there. I'm not sure how that gives peace, because all the sort of contested hot areas politically at the moment are not where they were planning to set their nuclear things off. But anyway, I would have preferred it if they kept the original plan, but it made more sense. But like I say, it's a very, very, very enjoyable film, and in terms of character-wise, it's plotted very well. Even if the bad guy plan at the end, even the bad guy plan is thought out. Like, don't get me wrong. It in terms of what they're planning to do, and logically that's what would happen. If they set it off there, it would radiate it, it would kill that. But I'm not sure why they needed to kill that particular set of people. Basically, is what that's the only thing is I don't know why they needed to kill a third of the world there. Because as far as I can tell, they're not really kicking up much of a problem at this point. So yeah, the plot makes sense to a degree. The twists were somewhat obvious, but don't detract from the film. And the cast was brilliant, and I have a new actress that I'm following in future endeavours. So all in all, fantastic film. Thank you for watching. I will see you very much in a new video very soon. Ta-ra.